welcome to the most ill-conceived business podcast around, the Business is Bullshit podcast. I'm James Hornick. Joining me are two gentlemen who would get canceled if our text message exchanges ever leaked. Jared Gibson and John Sarakis. I was thinking of that intro. I actually took to put some notes together for today's show. I actually copy and pasted all of our text about this topic and put into ChatGPT and say, help me summarize everything we discussed. And I realized I almost grabbed a couple things I shouldn't have. I'm like, ooh, good thing I didn't grab that one and throw that in there.
Yeah, it's an interesting text chain. I'm glad that our this and many text chains that I'm on never see the light of day outside the people
thinking about our text chain. You know,
that's everybody's text message thread. There's not a single person on, or not a single dude at least. I don't know what women talk about in their text exchanges. Maybe that'd be a good topic. What do women talk about in their text? Yeah, how does it vary different from what guys talk about? Anyway,
we need some evidence.
Yeah. Okay,
I saw my wife's
episode
text chain
10,
this morning.
Jared, we made it.
Mama Bear's text chain. Her Mama Bear's text chain. They just talk about kids. There's nothing in there. Yeah.
Right.
Depends on how bad.
This is 10.
This is 10. We made it, Jared. Jared was so freaked out, thinking there's no way we make it to 10. This is it.
It's commitment.
Episode 10. And we're going to lose all of our customers today. We are talking about, we're going to title this one, probably going to title this one Buyers or Bullshit, because that just rings right off the tongue. We ripped on salespeople. Let's rip on everyone who buys from salespeople. Let's just make everyone who ever did business with us angry.
Do it.
Not really.
You know what I think what will end up doing though is people that they're going to see their behaviors and what we're talking about, and I think even ours in reflection. And yeah, the rule is just don't be a dick. Things tend to work out okay.
It's not like you said. It's not just theirs. It's ours, and we'll get into it. But like. It's not like we're the best buyers.
You want to hear a quick story about being a bad buyer?
Go for it.
Let's get going.
So I grew up with this kid. His dad was the manager of this large automotive dealership, and he told me like all the techniques to buy a car. So I was buying my first car. That wasn't a used piece of shit. And so I go and I beat this guy up over like 3 days, right, over the car. Like, it's not going to be this, it's not going to be that. Need this. And I would go in and he would say, hey, I got to go talk to my finance manager. I was like, you going in there to talk about what you're going to have for lunch? Is it going to be fettuccine Alfredo today? I was like, don't fuck with me, bro. And I was just this really snot-nosed kid. And so anyway, I buy the car. I got a great price on it. I don't remember how much I got it for. And then I went back because I wanted some special floor mats that I negotiated in. And I go to the front and I was like, hey, I'm here to see Greg. Greg Baldwin was his name. I still remember the guy's name. And the lady said, no, he's not here. I was like, well, he said he was going to be here. I was like, well, what's the deal? I still have this like attitude, that I'm this great negotiator. She's like, okay, I got to be real with you. Like he had some customer that came in the other day. Like he was so frustrated that he quit. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, some snot-nosed kid. I was like, oh, Jesus. That was me.
Way to go, John.
Yeah. So don't be that guy.
That's like
how old were you?
You're literally like,
yeah.
I was like 20, maybe 20.
Right.
21.
Yeah. Did you see the episode of Seinfeld where they spent the entire episode in the car dealership, and George basically did exactly what John just talked about? Yeah. John, you literally are George Costanza. Like it's the exact same thing.
Buddy goes, he's like Keefy, and he's like, what do you mean Keefy? He's like,
yeah,
the car.
Yep. Same one.
Maybe.
Well, go back and watch that episode.
I will.
Go back and watch it because the scene of him saying, "Let me go talk to see if I can get that price approved." What you said is exactly what George Costanza said.
The fettuccine Alfredo,
minus the fettuccine Alfredo part of it, really? But the same for the same
that
thing.
Was the so that anyway. There is a whole game and a whole bag of tricks that they have that they use, and my friend's dad just educated me over a year, like just talking to me, hey, this is what they're going to do, and so on and so forth. So I was like so amped up and prepared to go in there and get the best price that I kind of, you know what? I like to think of it this way now. That guy is off to better pastures.
Did him a favor, getting him out of selling used cars.
Yeah. Because I was.
Did he dick hair you at the end? Car dealerships dick hair people. Hey, thanks for coming in. You dick hair now. They dick hair you?
Dude, he was just.
We used to do that. It's serving. We used to.
No, he was a consummate professional all the way to the end. But I think he was also a younger guy too, and I think that's also what was frustrating him in this process because I was just continually, just every angle that he had to try to work back, I already knew. So I was just, and I would call it out, and he was just because dude, it was, I would say 20-something years ago, 22 years ago, that was a really shady business. Not that it's not now, but it was I think at its peak of shadiness.
What kind of car?
It was an Acura 3.2 CL. Thing was sweet, 6-speed. Yeah, beat.
Did you you come off to me like you're living in Florida with tinted windows? Are you a tinted windows guy?
Oh yeah, tinted windows. It's hot down here, man.
Um, I want to make sure we frame this before we kind of continue and get into like modern. We're not going to talk about used car sales for the rest of the episode here. It's
Not that
really
there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah, there's a whole lot wrong with that.
yeah, it's also okay to say it's wrong. It's really about how people treat it. It's more basic than we're not just really shitting on buyers. We're really shitting on how people and how they treat each other changes depending on the power dynamics. And I think we can all see this in ourselves, just like how John can relate to a story he had from years and years and years ago. People, when they feel like they have more power and they're in control of a situation, will sometimes act in a way that's maybe not how they maybe perceive how they should in other situations. And I think sellers out, and I also want to say this too, like we're also not talking about like this. We're not talking about if you're like a salesperson who's spamming people and cold calling people, like you deserve everyone's full attention and respect. We're not saying that at all. We are more coming from the standpoint of if you're actively engaged with someone who says they need a partner for whatever kind of business they have, but then starts kind of treating you in a not great way, that happens. And I think every salesperson's dealt with that. And I think the other thing that we want to call out here is a lot of people who, as the buyer does that, will probably say not to do that when when the shoe's on the other foot. Like they don't like being treated like that, but it's just human nature and people are weird, and it's more an observation about that. So
Go ahead, Jared.
You could tell that I had something to say. Do I have a face?
Never mind, you did.
I was just gonna say that I think that buyers' guards are up a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that like when those guards go up, good sellers can get them to pull the guard down a little bit and get them to open up. It's very important, especially early on in the conversation. But I mean, I consider myself an average seller. Like I'm not a great seller, I'm not a bad seller, but I know that there's guards up. Like I can talk to people like out and about when we're not talking about business stuff, and they're very different than when they are a buyer or they perceive themselves as a buyer, right? So I've had conversations where it's like, hey, that was great having fun the other night. Great. We talked about all this shit. And then you get on a call with them or you talk to them about business stuff and they're like a different person. Their guards are up, right? And it's like, I try to be conscious of that as a buyer as well. Like, hey, I'm going to be personable just like the way I am if you weren't trying to sell me. But it naturally happens. Like naturally, it's different.
It's how you go into that relationship is really going to dictate the outcome. If you go in where you're being like cynical rather than just being a little bit skeptical, then it's going to unfold in a bad way. But all of my best experiences, including when I'm on the other side of the table or when somebody's looking to buy something from me, when they come in and they're just cool, calm, and like, hey, we're just starting a really good relationship here, it goes well, really well. I'm going to give them way more, not that we don't give a lot as to begin with, but when somebody comes in and they're like scared, like we're going to rip them off or something, dude, like they're just showing an experience. We don't want to work with those types of people, right? Not that we're not going to be compassionate and do what we can to try to let some of that guard down, but there's some people out there that just think the whole world's out to get them. And there's not a whole lot you can do to try to get around that. And typically, it's going to be a very adversarial exchange.
And the people that are out there that think that the world is out to get them are also, there's a correlation there with the people that are in the bubble of my world's the only one that matters.
Yeah, you get what you expect.
And I don't need to be responsive to you. I'm not going to be. I know that you're putting in the effort. I know that I told you I would do this. Guess what? I'm not going to do it. Doesn't matter to me. Right. Same type of people.
Responsiveness is one of the key things I wanted to talk about too, because when we were kind of prepping for the show, we were talking about the most overused word is partnership. Like every buyer in the world says they're looking for a partner, but then you find out some of them are looking for partners, but some of them it's just another transaction, and they're trying to put a bow on it to make you feel special as a seller. That like, oh, we're looking for partnership, but then like the litmus test for this is always responsiveness for me. Now, in my view, if someone's internal partner versus external partner, it's the same. If like a partner is someone you need to actually run your business, that's going to fuel your growth or whatever it is, or solve your problem. And if it takes you exponentially longer to respond to someone's who's an external partner than it would your colleague or coworker internally, like if you respond to like your colleagues within a couple hours or a day, but it takes you 3 days to get back, it's not a partnership. Like you're not actually looking for a partner.
I disagree. I think there are people out there that are looking for a partner because they want to be in an abusive relationship and they want to be the abuser. Like they're literally.
How are you disagreeing? We are literally agreeing with me.
But no, they're looking literally. I know, but they're the abuser, right? They're wearing the wife beater and they want to just kick puppies, right? But to them, that's partnership. Like it's literally like their view of it and their distinction is completely flawed.
Yeah, and it also okay. So we agree.
We agree.
Difference in terms, but that was the other thing we wanted to talk about too. There's a difference. There are. Then we have to kind of define this kind of further. I believe there are people who are clueless. I believe there are people who are selfish. I believe there are people who just follow bad processes, and then I feel people who are terrible, like John said.
What are the worst?
So
you just like terrible sucks, right? But I mean, when we say the clueless versus they don't care, like which ones annoy you more? Because clueless annoys the hell out of me. Like
really?
Clueless annoys me.
What? Like what are they ignorant of?
Ignorant on like how to buy, how to be the buyer. Like if I'm sending you a follow up, like, hey, great conversation, I send you a follow up, and they're just like they just don't get to it because they're clueless. Like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to respond. Like that is so frustrating to me.
Yeah, that's I don't.
And but that's clients too. Right. So that is like you don't know what to do with. Where at least it's like, hey, this is just how this person is. Like they're not going to respond back, but trust me, they're getting it. It's like, okay, I don't know. There's a lot that can go into it, but you talked about responsive time. I also think process. When we talk about partnerships and process, like response is very important. Like right, like a true partner is going to respond back to you. It's going to respond back to questions, but throwing you off of your process. Like, okay, we have a company and we have this process. We know we can do great work for you if you stick to this process. And if they go off process or they don't respond and it throws us off process, but then when they do decide to come back, they expect us to be at their beck and call. I don't view that as a true partnership. I view that as John, what are we doing?
Yeah, he's got this grin on his face.
Times.
Yeah.
Did I say process a lot?
A lot. Yeah, you really did.
Did I? I'm going to go back and
like a distracting amount. We're going to have to edit this out later.
Man.
Process.
Well, we're going to load
Don't
your
throw
voice
me off
into
my
one of those.
You guys are throwing me off my
process.
process.
We're going to train someone to sound like you, and then we'll put in a synonym for process for half of those, and you'll say a different word in the final comments.
We could do that. System. Right.
No.
I'm putting myself in timeout for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Both of you guys bring up great the responsiveness and I don't even want to say
and what
it right now.
And what say it John.
The process. But
I'm glad you guys see. This is why this is a good podcast. It's because you guys like most people would not call me out on that. Everybody that's going to listen to this, all three people, are going to be like, dude, you're saying process a fucking ton right now. And the fact that you guys call it out is great.
John, is he nervous or does he have a limited vocabulary? Which one do you think it is?
I think
the second one.
Some people just they like a word and they just keep driving it home, which is good. I mean, that's
it's limited vocabulary.
Okay.
Like I'm the guy that Googles process to see all the different phrases that I can add to an email.
Synonyms? Oh.
What did I say?
Process again. Instead of saying you Google synonyms, you said Google. Like, it's stuck in your head, man. Like you literally can't say another word right now. Anyway,
where to go next here? But no, all right. But going to process, there are companies that have this systemic issue that they create in the way that they buy, and I think it makes them lazy, and it also makes them unresponsive, like RFPs. Right?
Yeah,
RFPs are a disaster.
Yeah. Let's dig into that. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so RFPs. So we will not. Okay, historically, we've never won an RFP. We're amazing at coming in second place, supposedly. right? And I'm sure there's a lot of other second place winners.
Everybody comes in second.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Right. So there's that. Two, we will remove ourselves if there's more than six other competitors, and we've gotten into arguments with people based on that practice. So historically, we've never won, and then moving forward, anytime that we see them, we're skeptical, and in some cases cynical that we're not even going to win it. So yeah, I hate RFPs.
Do you fill them out every time? Because usually if they're an RFP is going out, for the most part, they've already got a vendor picked, and that vendor is the one that helps them write the RFP.
It's fake due diligence. Like they're trying to, they have to show their board or their executives, whatever, they did their due diligence. They already made their decision, but they're just going to ask they're going to make a bunch of people do the vendor dance to pretend like maybe you've got a shot doing business with us, but you really don't.
Yep.
It's pretty much everyone's experience with RFPs.
And brutal. Yeah, and you're right. There's some people that will help them write it. I've even tried to offer to help them write it to win it. That hasn't worked. And here's another thing. We've worked with some companies that have, and I love this. They said, hey, if this is over $50,000, it needs to go to RFP. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So like, what do we do then? She's like, I'll tell you what we do. We break this into two $25,000 projects. And I was like, oh, okay. Let's do that then. Yeah. It's like, all right. Yeah. So the whole thing is just a sham.
Yeah. But it's good to be on that side. I've been on that side many a time. And like the first job that I had out of college, I was with for almost 10 years. Like we did that all, and we work with a lot of government agency or government, like cities, counties. And we wrote tons of RFPs. They're like, hey, this has to go out for an RFP. Great. Here's the template that we typically help other counties put together. They send it out. And then if it's over a certain amount, great. We'll play around. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, and we can chop it up and make sure that it's not over that.
That's the game, yeah. And I love that.
It's good to be on that side of it.
Yeah. But you're not getting screwed, and you're not really screwing anybody. I think it's not cool for a company to say like, oh yeah, this is just what we do to make it look like we're doing the right thing, and on account of that,
there's similarities too in the recruitment space because we deal with RFPs too, but like the VMS systems. You guys familiar with that?
No.
So like it's more thing for in contract based labor. So companies that hire a lot of contractors. The idea was we'll create a system, a little software for it, and we're going to work with all the vendors, and we're going to dictate rates, and they're going to compete over it, and we're going to limit access to the actual decision makers and hiring managers. We want things to be fair, and whoever gets the first good candidates in, get the interview, they get the business. What this turns into is a race to the bottom. Because absolutely the rates get pushed down so much, it doesn't make sense for anybody who's actually good to get involved. And even if they were good and involved, if you can't actually talk to the person doing the hiring, there's no direct line of communication. What do you actually know about this role? Like how can you effectively recruit for it or convince like someone they should take this role? It's like it's all this flawed idea, but all the big companies use it because they want to centralize everything, because they don't want to have all these different relationships. And it's just, it's an absolute mess that but here's where it works. It's the same thing about the RFPs. It works when you have a client that can go outside of the system and say, okay, just send me the candidate. They'll talk with you like back channel. They'll tell you what the roles are about. They're going to look at your candidates and then just you. And then when they find the one, okay, put this one in the system, I'll approve it. Then we'll get them started. Like completely backdooring the entire system. So it's the same thing. Like anytime
we try to backdoor too. We try to like hijack the system. Like, are you sure you need an RFP? Is there another way to do this and whatnot? So yeah, we try to break it up.
But isn't it also come down to like how good the seller is? First person in the door that plants a seed that somebody needs the solution to a problem they may not have known that they'd had in the past, and now they realize that there's a problem. We need to put this out for RFP. You guys taught us this. Now help us write the RFP. Isn't that kind of like they just were better at getting their foot in the door than you were?
I mean, I don't know of a seller that would go in and say like, hey, let's put this out to RFP.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying a seller connects with the buyer, has a conversation, and the buyer says, wow, I didn't think about that. That's probably something that we should look at. Problem is that it needs to go to RFP. Can you help out with that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, anybody that doesn't jump on that would be silly if it had to go to RFP, for sure.
Yeah. But why does it have to? Like that's the thing.
But I think
the procurement purchasing people got to get paid.
So many people that are just it's unfortunate. This is one of the downsides of capitalism that are just they're worried about losing their job. Like all they do is not get fired. Like that's their job.
Yeah. Doge, especially like
Oh God.
Did this go out for RFP? Did it go out for RFP? You did. You're good to go.
Yeah. And I think I think the other thing that dehumanizes like the buying process is like buying by committee, where people just don't have the one-on-one to make that decision, and it's just like a committee where nobody's going to essentially have the onus of saying, hey, you know what, Jared, you hired them and they fucking suck, so that's your fault. And I think that buying on committee part is a big fail, especially for the seller, because they don't actually know who they're selling to.
Yeah. Well, it's an extension of the no one got fired for buying IBM, like back in the day. It was the old phrase, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So no one got fired if we had to put it out to RFP and make a committee, because it's everyone's fault, not just my fault, why things didn't work.
Yeah. Have I told the David Ogilvy story on here? Or Ogilvy?
Ogilvy?
So David
Maybe.
Ogilvy, he had a fear of flying, so he would take a train. So he takes a train all the way from Madison Avenue, New York or whatever, to Florida to meet with the Florida Orange Growers Association. So in there, they had all these other agencies that were essentially pitching, and they there was like a board, big group in there, and they said, all right, after every agency's done, you go ahead and ring the bell, and the next agency will come up. So David Ogilvy, in all of his English brilliance, says, who am I selling to in here? Like who am I selling to in here? Who is the person that makes the decision? He actually didn't really talk like
We're
that.
doing voices now. It's awesome.
But they said, no, we're a committee, so we all make the decision together. And he says, all right, ring the fucking bell. And literally got out of there and took the train all the way back to Madison Avenue. It's a famous story. Yeah, you have to know who you're selling to. If it's not that one person, then it doesn't make sense.
What other pet peeves do you have, John? Because I know you have a whole list of them here.
All right. The whole thing about buyers are liars, I don't agree with that necessarily, but the buyers that are liars are the worst. We're literally somewhere in the process, you find out that they're lying about something, whether it's the budget or their company, and then they want to go ahead and change whatever it is that you're quoting. Can't work with those people. The other are the unorganized, where they're just an absolute mess. And deep down somewhere, they're either a hoarder inside where things just don't make sense, or their lifestyle, where they just literally can't respond to an email, can't get you the information necessary so you can actually help them. The others that are just price conscious, where they just want that price immediately to get the price out of you, where you don't even know what the hell is going on. And then before they even get that, they're already negotiating the price down. So you're like, where the fuck are we right now? Like, I mean, what kind of transaction is this? And then the unrealistic, probably my least favorite, where they want to, create an empire, based on, 2 quarters, or the saying we like to say is they want to party like a rock star on a washing machine's budget. Just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
But I'd like... Go ahead. Continue. I was going to say, we've also pivoted to what are companies you just don't want, you don't want every customer. And that's the other thing too, is these are prime examples of we need to cut these out of the clips in terms of here, give this to every seller out there. Here's who you don't want to work with and save yourself a ton of time.
Yeah, I think if you go to so what I try to do is all right, put myself on the other side of the table now, and then okay, what do I want? So when I go to someone, I just tell them all right, hey, look, this is what I need. This is the budget that I have to spend. Let me know if that's real or not. And then I'm just upfront with them as much information. If you need an NDA, that's fine. Just don't come from a place of fear. Come from a place of trust, and ultimately just try to be as cool as possible. And in all of those experiences, that is the strongest negotiation tactic that I have. I'm going to be cool, and if you're cool, we're going to have a long-term relationship, and we're both going to leave this table happy.
I like it. John dropping some knowledge bombs. You actually learn things from this podcast occasionally. Some quick tips.
I mean, I think that's good, but I think one of the things that you talked about is making sure that you're open and honest in those conversations. I try to be as much as I can as a seller, and we always part of the Sandler sales training in me talks about the upfront contract at the beginning, where it's hey, one of 2 things usually happens at the end of this call. One, it's something we want to continue the conversation on. We can talk about next steps, what that looks like. 2, timing's not right for whatever reason. Not a problem at all. I just ask that you let me know, if this is something you don't want to move forward with, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Fair? Yes. Good to go. Awesome. So you're telling me up front, if you're not interested, or if this isn't a route that you want to head, that you're going to let me know. Those are the people that they just don't respond. Great conversation. Everything good? I want to go back to what we talked about at the beginning. 2 directions. Where are we going? Yeah, let's talk about next steps. What do those look like? Great. Anybody else need to weigh in on the decision? No. You sure? Yeah. No. Great. Awesome. And then it's crickets. And it's
Do you
like,
use that contract as social leverage later on in the process or the pros test?
so I don't, I won't say that. I think I'm overusing the P word on this call. I've thought about going back to it and using it, but it's almost just like, I don't even want to fucking waste my time anymore. It's like, I have a firm 3 follow-ups. I do a voice or a video follow-up on the second one. And then I send and every touch that I have after that is something of value. Like, I'm not just saying, I don't ever just want to say, hey, just checking in. Where are we at? Like, I can't stand those. So I try to add some value. We build out
I just check in
lead magnets.
Yeah, no.
And I stop after 3, and then I'll circle back with them if we got something new down the road, like maybe 3 months later. But I
followed up with someone
in my career.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, a lot.
134 is what I got.
That's your number,
and I closed them.
That's you. Did you?
2 years.
When was this? And
2 years. Yeah, it took 2 years. I closed them. That was 2015. Yeah, so it'd be 2013 to 2015.
All manual or automated?
No automations in there whatsoever.
So just manual.
Was this the same sales cycle, or is this just knowing that there was potential opportunity? Like, is it like trying to close it from? I look at it from like, I'm always looking from a hiring
Very
perspective.
different.
Like, there is no 2-year sales cycle. There's 2 years of building a relationship and waiting for the right time versus 2 years of trying to get one deal closed. In my world, that's why I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, they didn't ignore you for 2 years and then one day out of the blue, they probably said like
ignoring, but there were periods of them ignoring me in there.
You were courting them, and they wanted you to court them.
So what I look at is like the initial piece of me essentially saying, all right, we have our pitch or whatnot, like mini discovery. And then, I don't know if they wanted me to court them, but when something sometimes will just ping, that part of your ego or the competitiveness that's in you. I'm like, fuck that. Like, we're going for it. And then no matter what, we're going to close them. And
you have higher ticket like items and a longer sales cycle, I would assume.
That was an over $100,000 engagement.
Yeah. See, for us, I mean, our pricing is anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month.
No. But also,
I'm not spending time.
I really wanted to work with this guy in that company.
That's true.
Right. And it wasn't
I'll give you that.
He was just being, it wasn't like an art of seduction type of bullshit or anything. It was just like, I know we can do great work. I know we can help this company, and I'm just going to continue. And and the game in there, I'll do the just checkups or whatever. Hey, just checking in. If you don't get back to like a couple of those, then I'm going to do something a little bit crazy to see if I can get your attention.
Show up on their front doorstep when they live on the other side of the country. Hey, you and I talked one time. You haven't responded back to me, so I just came to your house.
It was a $10,000 check. His mom was the receptionist, and I waited the whole day for that check, and he wouldn't come out of his office. Yeah.
I got a story that I used to do all the time. We had contracts back in the day, like 1-page agreements. And once I got somebody to say, yep, we're good. I'll sign the agreement. Everything checks out in it. Awesome. When do you think you're going to get that back over so we can get everything set up in our system? That whole song and dance. I should have it by the end of tomorrow. I can get it back over to you. So if it's a Thursday and it's a Friday, and I don't see it coming over on Thursday, and Friday comes along and I don't see anything, I may call, leave a voicemail. Hey, just want to make sure, the fax didn't come through. I didn't see the email come in. Want to make sure it didn't get lost somewhere in translation. I don't hear back. I used to all the time, be like, hey, I faked the meeting. And today you hear this and it's like, oh yeah, sure. That really works. Back then it worked. Hey, I actually have a meeting down the street with ABC company at 3:00. Let me know if you want me to swing by, if you want to leave the contract to the front desk. I don't even need to see you. Just leave it up there, swing by, grab it, and I'm out. Right. That would work 90% of the time, 90% of the time. And it was like, as the buyer, you don't realize that I'm actually just driving all the way out there 2 hours. I drove 4 hours one time on a Friday afternoon to go get a contract in central Pennsylvania from Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
Like, get a contract.
This whole thing. Hey, I'm going to be in town or whatever, and you literally fly to a whole other state just to meet.
Just email it over. Just fax it or whatever. Just email it back over to me. Like, oh no, you don't need to swing by. I'll get it. I'm on it right now. That was that 10% of people that like understood. Like, he's trying to get it. Let me just get it to him. Not like have this dude fake a meeting. I know he lives in Columbus. He's not going to drive all the way out to like up to Erie, PA. Oh, you're going to be here? Yeah, I'll be there. Oh, great. I'll just leave it at the front desk. Like, do you not know how to operate an email?
Some fucks that just want you to drive knowing that.
I know.
Yeah, like, yeah let's
but I would, and I did. And it was like, I'm fine with throwing up Hail Marys because the whole ride there, I'm just like I'm going to go there. I'm going to make sure that I get this contract.
I'll tell you another thing too about more than following up 3 times too that founders have appreciated over the years.
Really quick before you jump in there, when I say follow, I mean manual follow up.
Yeah, that's what I'm
like for me. It's like there's a drip campaign that people go in, and then I think the content on LinkedIn also helps in me engaging. That's like touches as well, but like I'm talking about direct follow up.
That's what I'm talking about, like the directs. Yeah, I think, and there's some that have just said like ultimately like, all right, hey, why'd you choose us? Like, dude, I love the hustle. You know what I mean? People appreciate that, where it's just like, I want it, and I think that can be a competitive advantage. If you're willing to go the distance and your competition isn't, you deserve to win.
Yeah. You both, shout out to Nick Stark on this, but you guys both know Nick Stark.
Oh, yeah.
Next time you're with Nick, ask him to tell you the story about how he got the job at Empower HR.
I heard it. I've heard it a couple times.
It's a great story. Yeah. Nick got denied and he wasn't taking no for an answer, and he showed up and waited outside for the guy that basically told him no.
Oh, I
waited outside.
Kids, I heard a different story.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that. Definitely didn't kidnap the kids.
And if you're listening to the podcast, you should reach out to Nick Stark directly and ask him about how he got the job at Empower HR.
Empower HR, man. Yeah.
See which version you get, the John version or the Jared version.
It's definitely not the John version.
Jared, there was one more thing I wanted to. One more thing we talked about, kind of got warming up for this one. How small the world is. A lot of times buyers don't realize. Lead us out. Finish off the podcast with kind of your thoughts here.
Yeah, so a lot of business for us in general, it comes through referral or whatever, and the world is not as large as everybody thinks it is from a buyer's perspective. Like at some point, people will cross over. Like, you're going to talk to somebody that's going to talk to somebody that knows about you, whatever that is. Like, and it's the small cities, like Chicago's a big city, but it's a very small city. It's a small business community. Like everybody knows somebody that knows somebody. So why be a shitty buyer during a process when that's ultimately just going to come back and haunt you in the long run in some way, shape or form? Like it's going to come up in conversation a year down the road. Hey, do you know so-and-so? Yeah, would you work with them? No. Terrible experience in the process, non-responsive, like just didn't seem like somebody that we would want to do business with. Boom. And that's something that you're probably not even thinking about. It's like I'm going to use a sports analogy. In baseball, pitchers have very, very long memories, right? If a pitcher throws, and a batter like trots the home run, like flips the bat, like stares at his ball walking around the bases, that pitcher may not hit that guy in the face or in the head next time up, but in a year down he's going to always remember that you pimped a home run trot around the bases. And a year from now, he's going to hit you with a pitch when you guys face each other again, right? The memory is long for the sellers, and we do remember, like, don't be a shitty buyer.
I think I even have something even more direct and tangible working in recruitment. And this isn't even like a malicious getting you back kind of thing. This is just telling people all the time. I talk to job seekers every day. I talk to potential hiring people every day. And this is every single recruiter out there. People who come to us will ask us what we know about XYZ company. And I just tell them, I tell them what my experience was from other people I've recruited from there or people who have gotten placed there. Like, they love it. They think it's great. Think it's the best place. You should definitely pursue that. We might not even be involved with getting them that job, but then conversely, if all I hear are nightmare horror stories about everyone I talk to hates this place, hates working there, or heaven forbid, I talked to a founder one day and he's a complete asshole. Like, just talk to the founder one day, complete dickhead. Like this, and it's every recruiter out there freely shares their positive and bad experiences. And I think that companies have no idea how much this is a constant everyday thing that's been going on forever. And if you treat your employees bad, you treat your buyers bad, like it directly impacts the level of talent you can actually hire for your organization because the word gets out.
Yeah. And all it takes is one bad moment too.
Yeah.
Like you could be a great person, but if you have that one bad moment in that interaction with somebody, that can come back and burn you.
That's the one thing I want to mention too. Everyone does this. Every single person does this. I've done it. You've done it. John started the podcast. Anyone listening to this has done it. Anyone who says they haven't lost their temper with the Comcast customer service rep at least once in their life is a fucking liar. Like, we're all humans. We all have the capacity to be a jerk when putting the right circumstances. But I do think it's important to like keep that in mind. Like, the older I get, the better I am at keeping my cool and making sure I'm better at, just always treating people with kindness. I don't think I could have said that in my early 20s. You know what I mean? I probably lost my temper more. But I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that none of the three of us have been talking about this. We're not saying we're above this. We're not like looking down at other people saying you shouldn't do this or that. Like, we're saying that we've probably done this or that and like become better people from that. And everyone else needs to also try. So,
and I think along those lines, I mean, there's going to be moods, there's going to be circumstances that you're going to not react the best way, and sometimes it's on the other side of the table too, so you're just not going to fit and mesh. That's why I believe always try to be the coolest that you can, because organically some things are just going to get fucked up. Some people are just going to be pissed off, and you're going to do the best that you can, right? So mitigate and minimize as much as possible just by trying to do the best that you can.
Yeah. I saw something on somebody posted this on LinkedIn this week, and it talked about how he was cold calling, and he cold called somebody, and the guy was just a complete prick on the phone. He's like, "All right," he's like, "I'm going to give you a shot." He's like, "I'm going to put you on speaker. You got people in the room," like just a complete prick. And the guy went into the process and thought that he did a pretty good job, and then it was like click, hang up, right? The guy hung up on him. A few years down the road, this guy is with a different company and he's doing a startup and he's trying to raise money. And somebody reaches out to the guy that cold called and said, "Hey, I saw that you're connected to this guy. Anything you can say about him?" And he told him the story about what happened. And the guy was not even like, "No, zero, done. Never cut off all communication with him because of that."
Story that happened to me. So my dad, during the downturn, I tried to start like a renovation company with my dad, right? So 2008, nobody's building homes. That's what my dad's business was. So I was like, okay. So anyway, sold a job or two here and there, but get pulled into this house where apparently the roof had like fell in or something, and everything gets destroyed in this house. And I quoted the guy, did it like 10 times, worked with his insurance companies, did everything, had the insurance companies say they were going to pay it. And then the guy's like, "You know what? Nah, I'm going to go with my cousin." So essentially I did all the work, my company. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Years later, we have one of the largest AC companies in the Tampa Bay area, just doing insane amount. He sees our link on the bottom of the website. So he calls up. His number was still in my phone because I saved it. So I get this guy, he's on the phone. He said, "Oh, hey, I want to do this and all that." And I was like, "Nah, I don't want to fucking work with you. Not a chance in hell." He's like, "What the fuck?" Dude, he was irate. He was irate, and he kept calling me. And then, he'd sent me some nasty text messages. He called again and I answered, and then I told him the story. And he's like, "I'm really sorry about that." I'm like, "Me too. Bye." Click. Yeah. Fuck him.
Never forget, John. Never forget.
Yeah, but no, I mean,
there's no point. Burning bridges is the dumbest thing you could possibly do.
Don't use somebody to do all of that stuff. Just let me in. I would have helped. Hey, this is what I want to do. My cousin, he wants to go ahead and do this type of thing. I was like, all right, cool, man. Like, how can we all do this together? Just don't be a fucking shitty person.
All right. I think that's a wrap, I think, for this week.
Did we cover
Excellent
anything?
work,
What
guys.
did we cover? What did we actually cover on this?
James is telling there's like, oh, this thing took a turn for the worse.
No, I think it's great. I just, trying to be mindful. We're trying to make sure we don't. The feedback we got early on, this is episode 10 now, is that like if we go too long, people start tuning out. Like that was good, but it could have been a little shorter. So
yeah, but we got the best.
But you nailed it there, John.
Podcast right here.
Yeah, no, but I'm also excited. This is 10 in the can, so good. And if you're out there listening, and there's anything else you want us to just start ripping into, we take requests. Anything in the business world at all, we will gladly take a giant dump on it. Anyways, that's a wrap. 10 in the can, Business is Bullshit podcast. Once again, we're available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. I'm James. That's John. That's Jared. Reminding you, business is bullshit.